it seems like he was pretty open about these boundaries that he, as he
No,
puts it.
man. He was using textbook manipulation tactics, cherry picking clinical language to make it seem like he's saying something like that's intellectual, that's doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I wish you all the best. You know, it's no skin off my back. Like it's just like the salesman who says like, well, you know, if you don't buy this, you know, someone else will. You know, at this low price
the
that
clock
I'm
is
offering.
ticking.
Like,
Okay, well, if this is your boundaries, there's some weird boundaries. But it's women out there who, you know, could fall into that shit, who you could work with, who would be a good fit for you. I mean, you're Jonah fucking Hill, because if those are your boundaries, those are your boundaries. And where he might be using like some clinical terms, because this motherfucker's been in therapy for a very long time with a very good therapist. This goddamn documentary on Netflix. Going back to that list, I appreciate it saying, hey, this is where I'm at, because I would have said the same thing. As if I'm going to establish my boundaries, no matter what they are, of course, anytime a nigga put their boundaries or what want in a relationship, a lot of the times, no matter how sane they are, it's still gonna be somebody that's gonna come behind you and say that you're insecure, you're a weak man, or
because a boundary isn't a tactic to control somebody's autonomy. Like that's not what a boundary is, right? So like there's a difference between a boundary and you seeking to be controlling.
Well, shouldn't people be able to set whatever criteria they want for their own relationship? I think technically yes. However, what that criteria is can tell us a lot about the person.
It's a red flag.
No surfing
yeah.
with other dudes.
She's a surfing instructor, and
Wow.
I think
Yeah,
that like he
that's what I'm
found-
saying. It's such a bold. He was like,
Nigga,
"Look,
you
you gotta
should've just
quit your
moved
job."
on.
Yeah,
I
you
know.
should have just
Well,
moved. You should have even entertained that shit, bro.
surfing with men is crazy. Yeah, because that
It
at
was
first I was
weird.
reading, I was like, some of these seem kind of reasonable. Like
Some of them do. Yeah.
boundaryless, inappropriate friendships with men. I understand. I probably would say something similar. But
Yeah.
surfing with men, she's a surfer. Like that's
So-
wild as hell to have
Or
on the
posting
list.
yourself with bathing suits. It's like, well, hang on. Not
You're-
all
yeah,
bathing
you're a
suit
surfer.
selfies are the same. That's not the
Right.
same thing.
So saying like don't have inappropriate relationships with men in a normal relationship with a normal functioning like male goes without saying. So that has it does. I know what
I
you're
think
gonna
so,
say
too.
in a traditional
But
sense.
I also
it
see what you. I see what
100%
you
does.
mean. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Go ahead.
But the fact that he's saying that up front is indicative
Specifically?
of that has some
Yeah.
underlying
His
like,
boundaries finna be crazy as
undertones.
fuck. You're right. You're right.
Exactly.
Because it's very judgmental. No boundary list, inappropriate friendships with men is very much, okay, this motherfucker's going to have some very specific criteria for what the fuck this even means. So, yeah.
Well, that's what's
yeah.
that's what's sort of where the controversy comes in, because a lot of people are saying that he's abusive or manipulative, and maybe I think that there were some other DMs during the relationship that kind of came off that he was a bit unstable. So I understand that, but if we're just talking about this initial list, at least for me, any woman in their right mind, at least that I know, would look at that and be like, yeah, I'm not even touching this guy with a 10-foot pole. Because this, like, reeks of, like, he either is, like, incredibly insecure, or he's been through some shit, like he got cheated on, now he's, like, very paranoid about it. Then it's like, well, you did enter the relationship, so...
I feel like sometimes we're quick to, like, hold accountable, like, stupid people instead of, like, the con men who are tricking them. So I feel like if somebody comes to you with some bullshit and you accept it, I want to hold the person with the bullshit responsible before the person who is like, yeah, I
That's
guess
fair.
so. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, it seems like he was pretty open about these boundaries that he, as he
No,
puts it.
man. He was using textbook manipulation tactics.
Okay.
Textbook
Speak on it.
manipulation
Speak
tactics.
on it. Let them know.
He was cherry picking clinical language to make it seem like he's saying something like that's intellectual, that's doing it.
Yeah.
And he was saying like,
I can
like,
see ya.
I wish you all the best. You know, it's no skin off my back. Like it's just like the salesman who says like, well, you know, if you don't buy this, you know, someone else will. You know, at this low
worries. Yeah,
price
the
that I'm
clock is
offering.
ticking.
Like it's textbook manipulation tactics. So like,
I feel like, though, you could call everything textbook manipulation tactics once you decide that it is, though.
nah, man, like that was. You put it into the context, right? Because if you see that during a different light, I feel like you're looking at it from a positive intent perspective, which I don't think is wrong. If you put that in the context of everything that happened afterwards, you see it for what it is. And I'm not saying that I blame her for not seeing it as a manipulation tactic, because I'm looking at it with the 2020 hindsight. But if you look at that with the context of like going through her, her Instagram photos and then DMing her and saying like, you got to take this down. You got to take this down. your fucking ass is out in this one. You know, you're wearing a thong in this one. Like,
Right.
take this down.
Well,
like,
that-
in the context of
Yeah.
all of that, what he was saying initially,
Right.
was a
Red
manipulation.
flags. Okay.
Yes.
That's very fair.
And okay, so that's a good point. So in the context of what was actually befalling into that relationship and how he was recalling, because just like Max said, not all bikini and bathing suit pics are the same. But just, okay, well, if this is your boundaries, there's some weird boundaries. But it's women out there who, you know, could fall into that shit, who you could work with, who would be a good fit for you. I mean, you're Jonah fucking Hill. You gotta kiss a lot of frogs, but hey, your pool of available women is a lot
Quite
larger
high.
than, you know, the average man. So you might be able to find somebody that could work for you, and this is not like a manipulation tactic, just off rip. Because if those are your boundaries, those are your boundaries. And where he might be using like some clinical terms, because this motherfucker's been in therapy for a very long time with a very good therapist. This goddamn documentary on Netflix that's actually pretty good.
true.
If you are a person that suffers from mental health shit,
yeah.
or if you need some sort of guidance, it's very good. Going back to that list, I appreciate it saying, hey, this is where I'm at, because I would have said the same thing. As if I'm going to establish my boundaries, no matter what they are, and just, y'all know me, y'all know my heart. Like, I don't think I'm gonna have some wild ass boundaries, but of course, anytime a nigga put their boundaries or what they want in a relationship, a lot of the times, no matter how sane they are, it's still gonna be somebody that's gonna come behind you and say that you're insecure, you're a weak man, or, oh my, it happened to fucking Eddie and he wasn't even talking about his own damn personal boundaries or like what he looked for, and they jumped on his ass on TikTok.
But is
And
it
like,
fair
and it wasn't even, he didn't even say nothing crazy. That was the thing. Like, he didn't even say nothing crazy, and they jumped on his ass. And then like the part where, okay, hey, if this doesn't work for you, cool, it's no hard feelings. We can just leave it here right now. When it's done, this ain't no manipulation shit. This is what I'm looking for. If this don't work for you, cool. And I'm not going to. I didn't without the context of what he was actually doing in the relationship, like what the minutia of those boundaries could look like. Just surface level, bet. If I'm a woman, cool. That's not gonna work for me, motherfucker. I'm a surf instructor. No, bye. So
But
okay,
are
thank
all-
you for your time.
But
Goodbye.
are all boundaries valid? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so,
Like, I
so
think
that's my
the
point,
question.
right? So
Yeah.
it's also like there's a clear difference, and that's why I bring up like using these clinical terms that you may have heard from a therapy session in a way that makes it seem like you're saying something valid when you're not, right? Because a boundary isn't a tactic to control somebody's autonomy. Like that's not what a boundary is, right? And again, I understand, and I want to continue to give the caveat that I understand that you may not have perceived. And when I say you, I'm saying the general you, not anybody on this particular like forum. But you know, you may not see those initial things as what they ultimately, in my opinion, came out to be. But a boundary is not you being able to say like you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. A boundary is what I will tolerate in how you're treating and doing things to me directly. So like for me, I have boundaries. Most of them are tantamount to abuse in relationships, right? I'm not saying like, oh, you can't wear fucking red pumps or you can't take a picture in a bathing suit, like, and you're a surf instructor. So like there's a difference between a boundary and you seeking to be controlling. And I do
See-
think that there's potentially a fine line there in
Yes.
very, very minute circumstances. But I think Jonah Hill very clearly crossed over the threshold with his subsequent messages on just trying to control
With the subsequent
a
ones
partner.
for sure,
The
but I think
subsequent ones,
like what you're
absolutely.
doing when you say, "Oh, my boundaries are like abuse," it's like that's characterizing as if other smaller, like more trivial boundaries don't count.
No, it's just an
If your
example.
boundary
No,
is,
it's just,
no,
it's
for
just,
sure.
it's just an example.
I'm not saying you're
So
saying
I'm not-
that,
I'm
just
not- I'm
like
not-
it could be
yeah.
presented that way. So like,
but I'm
if a
saying that I'm
person's-
actively trying not to.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair. So then I'll add just as an additional caveat. Let me just skip the part where I do this and say what I said. So like, I feel like if a person says, "Hey, my boundary is I don't want to be in a relationship where me or my partner are flirtatious with other people," I think that's a fair boundary. Some boundaries are not fair, and I think that the way that he describes these things is in the format of a boundary. Like, it's not "don't do these things." It's if these things are things that you need, we are not well suited for one another because these are my boundaries. I'm not saying what you can't do. I'm saying what I don't want to be involved in. However, I do so I think that it fulfills the criteria of a boundary. But I agree with your larger point because I think the word boundary is one of those like psychological therapy terms that gets used as a way of manipulating people. Like you can like a boundary is a wall, and you can use your walls to like box somebody in to what they can and can't do. So you end up completely controlling them with all of your boundaries. And I've seen that happen in it's a
Yeah, maybe a better, instead of saying his boundaries in a relationship, maybe it's better, this is his criteria for entering a relationship with him. And that's kind of what he was outlining at first. The thing is like, because people always clap back, it's like, well, shouldn't people be able to set whatever criteria they want for their own relationship? It's like, I think technically yes. However, what that criteria is can tell us a lot about the person. One of them is like boundaryless, inappropriate friendships with men. Like, I guess that is reasonable. It does seem like a weird, like, kind of like you said, Alvin, it seems like a weird thing to have to clarify, or like, or it almost seems like weirdly vague.
It's implied.
Yeah, it's like if you put and don't suck nobody else's dick in a list of criteria. It's like, what happened to you that you're putting this on the list? You know,
I almost think it's like framed in a way where it's like inappropriate friendships with men. Well, what does that mean? Can I go to a friend, my male friend's birthday party? Like,
Not
would you
allowed.
consider that
To him specifically,
like,
right? What does it mean to him specifically?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then there are others where it's like to model. It's like to be a model. Like that's like you're in the industry. You're an actor. That's not And
those
again,
seem
like
very lopsided for an actor to say.
yeah, and like Josh, you mentioned, like if they're like okay, if like you don't want your girlfriend like taking her bottoms and like pulling them up her ass cheeks and like kind of like a thong and like bending over for the camera, like okay. But, like, do you mean, like, she can't post a picture of herself at the beach with, like, her grandma with her arm around? Like, because, again, we need to... I understand this is your criteria, but I think you need to flesh it out a bit more because it does seem a bit... I think there was one picture that he asked her to delete, which is, like, she's wearing
He's wearing
like
a one-piece. She's wearing a one-piece bathing suit.
It's very strange.
Like, full
It's like,
cover.
that's very weird. That speaks to something.
Or like the one where she's in the white, the one where she's in the white outfit.
Yeah,
And
like,
apparently he made
it's
her
not
take
even
it
a
down.
bathing suit. It's like a. She's not even showing.
It's a
midriff,
cool summer.
technically.
It's a cool summer linen outfit, and he's like, "You gotta take that shit down, man." Like that.
Yo, I just
that
seen
that
this
cut is a little
tweet.
bit weird.
Somebody said
And
this
this-
how they want her to be surfing.
It's almost like under, and like this is kind of like, to your point, Alvin. It almost seems like being unreasonable, framed or under the veil of it being reasonable. When you actually look into it, you're kind of like, no, this does actually kind of seem a little bit like a lot of red flags are going off just with this first message.
the thing.
But then,
He said
but
too
then
much.
there's that. I think there were other messages. I think he asked her to delete pictures of her like surfing. She was literally just surfing like in the water. She wasn't even posing. But I think they were from before they even started dating, which that especially was very, very strange.
That's weird.
Yeah,
That's weird.
Yeah.
Like that is very much controlling behavior. Apps 100% positively. Like that's very
I think-
controlling, insecure behavior.
I think also from the end of the person who is the more like the person who has more criterias, boundaries, whatever you want to say, who's feeling more insecure and more like, I really don't like this is making me feel insecure. This is making me feel like you're trying to garner the attention of others. This is making me feel like you're going to cheat on me. I feel like that person has an obligation to like end shit once they're having to like micromanage. Like I know we say, oh, well, she chose him and she's accepted the criteria, but I think as a grown adult, you got to go, look, if I got to do this much to get myself to where their behavior makes me feel safe in the relationship, getting angry and frustrated, it's like, just leave. Like, just break it off. And
Did
go,
she?
hey, look, I
But
don't
didn't she
think I
ultimately
can
though?
do this.
Isn't that
Say
why we're
again?
getting this now? But didn't she
What?
ultimately though? Isn't that why
No,
we're
no,
getting
no, no.
this now?
The person that I'm talking about is Jonah Hill.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Never
You see what I'm
mind.
saying?
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like if
So, like,
he
him
has
as
to
the-
micromanage her to do that,
Exactly.
then he should be like, "You're not for me. I'm bouncing."
Exactly.
Okay.
And proactively leave. Like if you have those, because I think again, like with the insecurity question, I think we don't allow people and specifically men to be insecure about shit, and we don't give any grace for that. Instead of being like, "Fuck, this motherfucker has some shit going on where those pictures are triggering him," but he making this her problem to where it's like you got to delete this and go back to September and delete this one, and this was making me feel insecure. And bitch, are you cheating on me? It's like, yo, bro, you got to back the fuck up and just go, hey, look, I don't think I'm in a place to date somebody because this is
And
doing
that's-
too much for me, you know?
And that point came up a lot, right? Like on Twitter, from a lot of guys who were saying essentially the first part of what you said without adding the second part, right? So yes, we live in a society where in a lot of times in relationships, like we don't allow men to express their insecurity or even work through their insecurity in a healthy way, right? But I do think that somebody with the resources and privilege of a Jonah Hill should try their best, if they care about the person that they're with, to try to work through their insecurities in a way that's not maladaptive for the person that they claim to have some care for, right? Like, and I specifically say that because, you know, when you bring up therapy and all that kind of stuff, you always get the resource question. Jonah Hill doesn't have those issues. He has, you know, potentially the stigma to work through, as well as all men do, I think, to some degree, in some communities, you know, more than others. But he 1,000,000% has the resources, right? And he's clearly, to Josh's point, experienced some therapy because he has the language.
He got
he
the
has
words.
the documentary.
He got the words.
So do the work, Jonah Hill. Do the work. Don't make your insecurities.
We don't know how
your
far back this
partner's
was, though.
constant. You know,
Like maybe
True.
he did. You know, like
That's
I don't know how
fair.
far back these texts are. Yeah.
that's actually fair. I don't.
And on top of that too, because like you also got to, and this isn't to defend his actions, but maybe just to provide a possible look behind the scenes, or like, you know, kind of how the sausage is made. Like, why is he acting like this? You gotta think, like, as a person, like Jonah Hill has been humiliated many times publicly.
Oh,
Are you the fat guy in Hollywood still, or is everybody like look at you and they're like, oh wow, you know, this is great, now you're healthy?
Do you have any other questions?
Like,
That's a good point, too.
And like,
he's famous for that, essentially.
yes, and like, come on now, like, just your regular daily. Like, we was talking about the shit last week, a couple times before, how it is when you just get constantly bullied and joned on, you can't fight back. So it's like, I mean, you got to think a nigga like that gonna have some issues.
Yeah.
And once again, it's not to defend, but just here's
Contextualize.
possibly one reason of why this might.
It's
be
a reason,
happening.
not an excuse.
Yeah.
I haven't seen more of the texts, but it does seem very like I'm not ready to say this motherfucker is like a evil demon manipulative abuse. Like I'm not seeing that yet, but I also haven't seen everything. So it seems like all you three have seen more texts that give more context, that maybe he's like a dangerous person.
Well, that's sort of why this is kind of like getting out of hand too, because the one that is being circulated the most is just that first text where he's laying out the criteria. So a lot of people are looking at it's like, well, even if it's unreasonable, she still agreed to it. But then there are others, particularly the one where he's like asking her to delete photos, and you look at the photos, and it's like I think there's literally just one of her like on her surfboard paddling, and it's like from afar. It's not even like a setup shot.
I'm
just
looking at
surfing.
it. Her ass is not even facing the camera. It's like,
then that kind of triggers. Well, it's like if by like a swimsuit photo you mean like not like showing my ass cheeks bending over on the sand for a camera, or do you mean like me taking a group photo with friends at the beach? Because those two things I would say are in completely different universes.
Them titties looking too perfect. Them titties looking too perfect in this photo. Take it down.
And I also
take them titties down.
I also want to take a hardline stance, and I think there's a conversation to be had about that as well, like on any level of the spectrum. But like specifically though, no, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say before we get into it, maybe I'll do a quick little intro, and then we can segue into what I think he was about to segue into.
I mean, you can definitely do an intro, man. This is your show. I'm just here, bro.
Don't even try that. Don't even try that. We got shit that we can't even get into because
You the button, man. You the button.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? But it's not possible without the Rory and Maul. Otherwise, it's just some bullshit.
It clearly was possible without the. You see,
that
Josh's
wasn't
face
the
on
best.
this.
That wasn't the best.
But it's
This motherfucker said it's not possible without the Rory.
But I don't watch the Joe Budden podcast no more.
Yeah,
Like,
no, he's doing fine. You know,
He's doing just fine. The Rory and Maul podcast is doing
the 85
substantially
South
worse.
show then. Fine. Fuck. God damn it. You tricked me. You tricked me and trapped me. Power bottom type shit. Anyway, welcome to Waving the Red Flag, the number one dating and equal hosting podcast in the universe. It's your boy Eddie. It's Josh. It's Alvin. Joined today by Macabre Storytelling.
How we doing?
Mofongo.
Making my phone go. That doesn't even work.
It doesn't. I don't know. And I just something about the horns to this, but I don't even know what his background is. What is your background, Mac?
Backgrounds in like my channel and stuff, or
sorry, he hit me with the no. I'm from this country. No, I mean like ethnically. I'm from Chicago. No, but where are your parents
Yeah,
from?
right.
They're also from Chicago. What do you mean by
I
that?
think I'm mostly English and German. When I was a kid, there was a period of time where my dad wore one of those like like the Irish paddy hats, and I asked my mom, I was like, "Mom, are we Irish?" And she said, "No, but your father likes to think he is." So I don't
It's
know
cool.
if maybe I'm a little Irish. I don't know. So,
Okay.
In spirit.
but I think like German.
I think Irish is like the Native American of black people, of white people. Like y'all like to like, oh yeah, no, we
Especially-
from the tribe. Like
especially
from
in
the motherland,
Boston,
Ireland.
it was kind of a cool thing for, especially like when the Boondock Saints came out. Every fucking kid was like,
Especially, I
That
imagine in
Italian.
Boston, right? Like, yeah, like especially in
Absolutely.
fucking Boston, I imagine. Yeah.
or when the Departed
It's
came
dope.
out. Oh my! Every kid in my school wouldn't shut the hell up about it. So
So, Alvin, what were you saying just before about? I think you were getting into the legitimacy of boundaries around sexualized photos. I think that's where you were headed.
Yeah. To be honest, I had 2 points and I forgot the second one, but that is one.
my
I
fault.
was, no, we had the intro. And
Yeah,
also,
why'd
like,
you write it down? That's fuck. They gonna blame me for that shit.
Look, man, I have a fucking pad here, so I should have wrote it down. I have a
Yeah.
pad specifically for that purpose.
Okay, thank you for saying that.
But I do think that there is a conversation about like whether or not somebody posting a quote unquote sexy photo crosses a legitimate boundary in any
A
circumstance.
reasonable
I think
boundary
that's
that a person could have. Yeah.
Yeah.
and just to kind of connect it to is like, I think to your point, Alvin, I think you mentioned earlier, it's more about, it isn't so much about like the actual boundaries in a relationship, but how the communication of that is being expressed. Is it being expressed like a demand? Is it a conversation? When you look at the other Jonah Hill texts, it doesn't, and I would not, I mean, again, there might be other texts that we haven't seen because the ones you sent, but just from the one that she shared, it doesn't seem like it was a healthy relationship in any sense of the word.
That was my second point. Thank you for
Yeah.
There we
bringing me
go.
back, Matt.
There we
my
go.
second point was going to be that let's theoretically say, like, for the people that want to say that, like, Jonah Hill had healthy boundaries and he was just enforcing his boundaries, she very much tried to capitulate. Like those messages were very much like, like, okay, I'll take this photo down. Okay, I'll take this photo down. Okay, I'll take this photo down. There are some slight
Definitely,
pushback on one of the surfer videos where she was like,
Like,
"This is my
seriously?
most popular video."
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I'm not wearing a thong. You're saying I'm wearing a thong. I'm not wearing a thong. But she was very much like she was kind of trying to work with the guy. You know what I mean? So I also think that like it seemed, again, we don't have the full context of their entire relationship. We have a very small snapshot and a very small set of messages. But extrapolating a little bit from that, it seems like she was trying to work with him and he wasn't trying to work on himself to get past any of this.
But
And I
now
think
that-
that's what I ultimately have a problem with.
I think that raises the question of like, let's say she took down XYZ amount of photos and he was like, yep, cool, we're all good. And they got to like a coasting speed altitude. Would that legitimize things? Because obviously she's come out to say, yo, fuck this man. So that means somewhere in the relationship, she went from capitulating to going like, this is ridiculous. Like or realizing retroactively that the things that I was capitulating to, I shouldn't have been in the first place. So I think that's the question, which I think is kind of inherent in what you're getting at.
Yes.
So
yes.
even if they did figure it out, even if it was like coasting and she was like, yeah, okay, cool, and they did it, does that legitimize it? And I think for some I would say yes, but for some it's like, no, this is a ridiculous claim. Like to something that you were saying before, Mac, there are lots of boundaries that are just ridiculous and you shouldn't look for them in anyone. Like you shouldn't ask them, even if there's someone willing to say, yes, it's just a bullshit ass boundary, is my stance.
And especially when we're going to, I mean, this is a more like in-depth topic, but especially, I mean, that was a big conversation around, when it comes to like religion and whatnot, when a lot of religions dictate that women, have to do certain things or serve certain roles. And in a lot of
Quote
these
unquote
cases, the
submission
woman,
doctrine.
yeah. And in a lot of these cases, if you actually talk to the women, it's not like they're like, I mean, obviously in some cases, but in many cases, the women are like, no, this is what I want to do. This is, and most people would say it's like, okay, well, everyone in this situation is consenting. And yet, for most people, it'll still rub them the wrong way. It'll still kind of make them feel a bit uneasy. Another situation was, how do you feel about gay men who willingly undergo conversion therapy? Like, so if you're an adult man,
They're
you're gay, and
lost.
you want to,
Yeah.
and you want to not be that way, so you go to a therapist to try to like, pray the gay away. That's messed up. But at the same time, it's like, well, you're an adult. I guess you can do as you want.
Yeah, this is the
So-
thing we've
but
gotten into
it's-
before.
yeah.
I just patently disagree with all of that across the board. Like
Yeah.
choice
Yeah.
doesn't come out of nowhere. It
Yes,
runs
thank
along
you.
lines of
Yes.
societal
We're fucking
pressure,
agreeing.
of
Thank you.
power, of dynamics and shit like that.
Exactly.
No
Yes.
gay person left to their own devices will ever choose to convert to being a straight person. ever.
There are all kind of
It-
structures pushing them toward that decision. All kinds of
Because
structures
there's
outside
no
of their
straight
control.
people converting themselves just by free choice to be gay. That's not happening. So there must be some difference between the two that's causing one group to go, let me convert to get rid of my sexuality. It's not a choice.
And that's what's so frustrating when people talk about, because like when we're talking about determinism and whatnot, people will say it's like, oh well, it is his free choice; he can do as he pleases. But then when you go deeper, it's like, well, if you were raised in a society for the first 18 years of your life where you were told this was bad, you're going to hell, we're going to disown you if you do this. How
you can
much
choose to go to hell if you want to now. That's your
how
free
much of a
choice.
choice is it really? And that's when we kind of get into,
I
I
think
think,
the fucking Saint Peter, and you're just like,
Yeah.
nah, man. There's like some bullshit up there. I think purgatory is more my speed.
Let
Like,
me
I wanna
get
bounce.
that. Well,
Like-
you're allowed to do that, but
And
you
I
can't be gay in here.
and I think, Alvin, this is kind of what you were getting at. I think a lot of people weren't talking about like coercion and manipulation. They have this very like surface level understanding where it's like, hey, if someone doesn't have a gun to your head, then it's not coercion or manipulation. And it's like, it's a lot more
Bingo.
complicated. It's a lot more
Bingo.
complicated than that.
Yeah, super famous Jonah Hill says, "Hey, bitch, no bikini photos in Instagram." You like, fool, fuck, I don't know if I can make this work, but I'm gonna try. I'm a surfing instructor, but I can't surf. Like, fuck, all right, well, I know he's in therapy. He's struggling. Everybody calls him the fat actor. Like, let's see if we can make this shit work. And now you goddamn 20 pages in trying to explain whether or not you can keep your fucking
Yeah.
surfing video up. Like,
That's,
Or it's a-
that's crazy.
it's
Because
a-
one thing I just don't understand from Jonah Hill is like, why on earth would you choose this woman to be with in a relationship where her basic livelihood goes against your perceived boundaries?
yeah.
So to
That's the-
to give
that's
up the
the other
Alvin
thing,
what she was
Josh.
saying before, like I get it.
And that's also what people were pointing
a
out.
wild
People were pointing
choice.
out the fact
What?
that like the thing that like attracted him to her, like he's calling out in DMs when they first met her surfing photos and how good she looks and sending her fucking heart eyes emojis and shit. But now I gotta gatekeep that. Now I gotta control.
A little strange,
that. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Let me give some pushback. I think, I don't know, because I've heard this like, well, she was, I'm appropriating this phrasing, but she was a hoe when you met her. Why are you expecting, anything different? I feel like that's what monogamy is. I don't know if it applies to this situation, but isn't that what monogamy is? You met someone under a certain set of circumstances that you want them to fundamentally change in order to pursue a relationship, or am I manipulating the
I think
language?
you're.
I got something
I think
to say.
you're.
Buddy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're misconstruing the example, right? This is
Okay,
not
maybe, yeah.
like this is not like you were a hoe and now I expect you not to be a hoe. This is like I liked you because you were a badass attorney, and now that we're together, I don't want you to
quit
be
that
an
job.
attorney anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like, you know,
I
it's-
agree. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree that it doesn't apply in this situation, but I feel like sometimes people are like, "Oh, well, she was okay." Let me be more specific. Sorry, go ahead,
Real
Josh.
quick, you mind if I? Okay, so
Yes, I do. Not mine.
yes, I do.
Please talk.
goddammit, because
Fuck.
it's going to fucking mess up with what I have to say next. Okay.
No, literally the opposite. Please just talk. Oh, fuck. Christ.
Because anyway, but that was like that's kind of like a fallacy because like you shouldn't be looking to get into a relationship actively wanting to change this person. Does that like?
I agree. No, I agree
Okay.
with you.
Like
Feel
that's,
that way.
that's
I agree
you kind
with
of you're starting out wrong if you
All right, it's just me.
actively
Last man.
want to change all these things about this person so they can fit into your mold. Find somebody else or like just find somebody that you can work with. But at the end of the day, if you really love that person, who they are should be enough. Like that's one of the things when you know it's kind of like, damn, I can work this person. Like she's really dope. Like I don't necessarily like we just mesh well. I mean,
At
that
the
could be
core, you
subjective, but
shouldn't.
it's-
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I agree with you so much. At the core, like you shouldn't be trying to change people. Like obviously, you
No,
know,
core, but is thirst trapping core?
Little veneer. Her fucking profession as a surf instructor and her using her platform to like.
Yeah.
I agree. Let me be specific in the example that I was trying to get at. Like, if a person says, "Hey, I met this person because I like their thirst trap content," I don't think it's necessarily unreasonable to say, but outside of being single, maybe we dial that back a little bit. Like, this is single behavior. I feel like that's not insane.
I think
Yeah.
it's a
Well, I mean-
conversation and not like take this down right now.
No.
I
Now,
think
see,
It's a
no, I
conversation
agree,
about
I
how
agree,
this
I
is
agree.
impacting both of us.
Yeah, I'm not defending
How this
like,
makes me feel.
Yeah.
Is this feeling pro-social? is this a feeling that is representative of what's actually happening in the circumstance? Like I think he skipped like 30 steps in this conversation.
Okay, just let me clarify. Like, I'm not talking about Jonah Hill specifically. I'm talking about the larger level idea that we were talking about, which is it appropriate under any circumstances to expect, in pursuit of a monogamous relationship, a person to behave any differently from before you got together to after you got together? And I'm arguing yes.
I think by definition, monogamy is different than people were. For example, I'm not actively on like Tinder or what the fuck ever.
Exactly.
What I'm saying is that in a specific cosm where you're talking about like somebody's dress or their photos being posted, within reason, I think that can continue. And I think if you feel strongly about it not continuing, you need to have a conversation with your partner about why you feel that way. Again, is that a pro-social feeling? Because again, a lot of the times how we feel is not necessarily rooted in pro-social behavior and pro-social belief, right? It's coming from deep-seated beliefs that we've like got over time that may be maladaptive. So you need to be thinking about what that is, and that needs to be a conversation with your partner about where the maladaptive like pendulum is swinging, right? Who's really wrong in this? And I think that's a difficult conversation to have, and I think that a lot of times people do require like professional help to like kind of unpack where they're going with that kind of situation. But I think that the overall arc is a little bit like on the nose, and the nuance of it is a little bit closer to what I'm saying. I think the overall arc of it, you're right.
Yeah, there's sort of a spectrum in regard. Kind of going back to the whole like the difference between like bathing suit pictures. There's still a spectrum there where it's like, yeah, if I'm dating someone now, obviously there are certain behaviors that they might do. If I'm dating someone or living with them, you probably wouldn't want that person going out at all hours of the night, never contacting you. If you're single, you can go out and do whatever you want.
If we're in the talking phase, that's very normal.
But I want you to check in with me just to be safe. But to the point, Alvin, you brought up about the lawyer, if you have a guy who's looking for a woman that he wants to be like a traditional wife to stay home and take care of the kids,
maybe
then
that's not the one.
why are you pursuing a woman who's like who's been a head of a law firm for 20 years and has like forgone a family and all this? It's like there are plenty of like small communities and traditional women who would align with that right away. So it is a bit strange why are you pursuing this woman who seems like the antithesis of the woman you claim to look for? And in that case, I think there was that Trevor Noah quote going around that people were sharing, and it begs the question, are you looking for a submissive woman, or are you looking for a woman who you can make submit? Because those two aren't really the same thing. There are plenty of women who would be happy to like, this is the traditional relationship I want.
To be fair, I think both of them are kind of dumb.
I want to submit to my husband, yada, yada, yada. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But then there are cases where there are guys who they'll find a woman who doesn't seem to fit that mold. And he kind of wants to be like, oh no. It's kind of like the same vibe of like a straight dude who like will meet a lesbian and he's like, oh no, she hasn't met me yet. It's kind of like
you have
that
a dick like
sort
this
of
though.
weird.
She ain't seen this dick yet. All right.
Yeah. Again,
you never had dick that don't stay hard for forever and isn't 10 inches.
Like, it's almost comical. His initial flirting with her, he sent her a picture of her in like a bikini. It's like, hey, looking good. It just seems very strange that like now all of a sudden that we're dating, it's like, yeah, that whole thing that like was like the initial basis of our relationship. Yeah, you can't do that anymore. It wasn't
when
like
it's a
her,
thing
like,
that is sexual. Like,
why is that ultimately sexual, bro? Like,
I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying no, that's true. So, I can't make this argument without it being muddied up with a specific example. So I'll just leave that. So, let's tie this into the Keke Palmer shit, because old boy got goddamn roasted into fucking oblivion. I think he deleted his social everything.
He came back.
He left the country. I think.
Is there a case where he can have umbrage with her behavior that isn't just because he's like an insecure little boy or like a little pussy baby? I think that is a fair conversation. But I think we can all agree that the way he addressed it by putting that message on social media was like the most, it's like the cattiest like mean girl shit I can think of. Like he wanted the, that was so
his
weird.
Ass is in the water right now.
And
that's
I
what got him into that situation in the first place.
Yeah.
I was hearing that I was hearing that they actually were already broken up, which makes him dumb as
I have
fuck if he
seen
posted
that
that,
as
posted
well.
that message.
Which
if
is
they not
insane.
together, you don't need to have shit to say about
That is
anything that
insane.
she's
Oh, yeah.
wearing or who she's hanging out with. Which is why it makes sense that he would be like, "Oh, you're a mother, not you're my lady. You're a mother," because that's the
That's
only
a good
thing that I
point.
have left
Yeah.
to kind of control you with. But if they were still together and they've had this conversation before of like, "Hey, that style of dress at a public event, hugging on another celebrity, serenading makes me uncomfortable." If you pulled it out in public, we can air it out in public. Like, if that's the situation, I think that's
So,
closer
the
to
issue is-
reasonable.
The issue is also, I think that like where a lot of people are kind of trying to shoot him some bail is they were saying that KEKE was a little bit too flirty with Usher. Like that was a little bit
entirely inappropriate.
So
entirely
and again, that,
Like,
I
motherfuckers
bring
not
this
gonna
up.
like
I
what I
bring
have
this
to
up
say.
first.
She
I
was
bring this
tripping
up first.
if they're
No,
together.
I bring this up first because I knew this is what you were going to say, right?
Yeah.
That's not what he addressed.
That is
he
true.
didn't say. He didn't say
That is
shit
true.
about.
Good point.
Yeah, she kikiing it up. You know, pun intended.
I
With
don't-
with Usher, this
I think
motherfucker
he made it
said
about something else. But
Okay.
this motherfucker made it about her outfit. So when you make it about the outfit specifically,
Yeah.
you open yourself up to the very fair critique that is, in my opinion, you know, basically like indefensible of like you had this conversation in public about trying to control and police your woman, and you made it thinking that you were going to get some level of public support to shame her. So that's what that was about. I think that if he had like in that same sentence said like, I can't believe that she was over here like, you know, flirting up with Usher and she was wearing that outfit, I think it would be a little more, the pendulum would be a little bit more on his side. Even though I still think that like she's fine like in that regard, but I think that the general population would be a little bit more on his side if he had made it more about her actions with Usher as opposed to like what she was wearing.
I'm looking
and
back
trying
at
to control like her
the
specific
tweets
stuff.
or whatever. He didn't say shit about the Usher shit.
He
He
did
didn't say.
not.
I'm
He
looking back.
only
It's
said the
all
outfit.
about the outfit.
He only
So
said
you're
the
right.
outfit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And if they not together, that makes even more
That's
sense because it
insane. What a nut case.
Yeah.
yo, and because it's I can't imagine if you not together. Why are you trying to police? If you're not even.
What
with
would
this
you?
woman
What would
no more.
even possess you to do that? That's insane.
Yeah, to try to police her, but act whatever. Like, and
She's single.
I don't understand. But if they
Misogyny
were
will
together,
possess you.
but if they actually were together,
Possessed by misogyny.
possess my misogyny, my nigga. Like, yo, that's the name of the episode. Yo,
Can we-
but if they were
Poltergeist.
together, right? I just feel like he made it about the dress because that's what he felt more comfortable saying rather than actually how he actually felt about this shit. But at the end of the day, it still wasn't the best move. This motherfucker was playing like checkers when he should have been playing chess because that wasn't it. To make it about something so superficial when there was actually a deeper root cause or some shit, and then act like, oh, I'm so just behind this. Like, mothers are not allowed to dress and be sexual with Usher, you know.
Yeah, and he
Facts.
undermined his own point by putting it out there for social media. Like if he had addressed it in private and then she came out and said it, that would be one thing. But the fact that you go on to social media and you make it a public thing, even if you could argue, to your point, Eddie, even if you could argue it's like, well, could you argue that she made it a public thing first by, you know, quote unquote,
Depending on
flaunting?
what their relationship was.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
but
even
go ahead.
so, it's like regardless, you're still making things. You're exacerbating matters. You're not actually trying to solve the issue. You're just making things worse.
Yeah, but then who's wrong at that point? Because Kiki's response back to it was still public. So it's like they both now just airing this shit out
man.
publicly. And it's
Kiki
like,
won, man.
yeah, but at this point,
Kiki-
it's like, what are we
Kiki
winning?
combo
Like,
broke
what have
this
you
man.
won? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're just going, cool, the relationship is done, fuck them, whatever, and that's what we're doing,
Yeah.
I guess. But if the goal is like to make shit work, none of this is the way to go about any of it.
Yeah, no.
And that's how the Jonah Hill thing too. When you read the DMs, it seemed like it didn't seem like a couple trying to work through an issue. It felt like two people who had enough of each other's shit, and
Right,
for some
trying to-
reason were just kind of we're
Trying to
trying
win.
to appease each other passive aggressively. And it's like at that point you're like, okay, what are you even doing together at this point?
True. Well, look, Josh, you made a very good point that I hadn't considered before, because you were right. This motherfucker did not mention the Usher shit at all, and that was the main
That's a
thing
great
I was
point.
defending his stance off of. He didn't say anything about that, so he's pretty much entirely wrong here. What the one thing that I did take issue with in the culture is people defending if she, like, they were defending as if she were in a relationship with this man, that her moment with Usher was appropriate. So, not disagreeing with Kiki, that's fine if she's single, do you? A person in a relationship, booed up like that, getting serenaded, wildly inappropriate.
That's
So
what
everybody
Usher
who was
do at his
I was-
concerts.
I disagree.
It don't matter.
I could not disagree.
But
more.
It don't matter. That's fine for Usher.
I'm just saying it's a
Yeah.
common thing and at his shows.
Yeah,
like,
of course,
you know.
of course.
Yeah.
So you don't go to
I
those
could-
shows. That's like me being at a strip club and being like, "But that's what they do there." Like what?
I
What does that have to do with
disagree.
anything?
I disagree on both fronts. I think strip
Okay.
clubs are fine for people in relationships. I think
No.
if Usher want to fucking put his arm around somebody and sing "My Way,"
They got an
that's fine
extreme
too.
stance on monogamy, goddamn, bro. It's like
not
you
ex-
are
He's like,
never
you're not liking pics. You're not watching porn. You're not fucking
Don't
going
go
to strip
outside.
clubs.
you ain't having wet dreams.
Don't
5%
If I
tent
catch
only.
you nutting in your
5%
sleep,
tent only in your car.
Slap him in his sleep, just wake him up.
you can't see nothing. They can't see nothing. You getting pulled over daily. No. Are you telling me?
But I knew
right
that.
now
I knew that's
you-
what your. I knew that's what your take was going to be.
Okay,
Like, I
yeah.
knew that. Like
and
I was.
I didn't expect that level of pushback from you. But do you genuinely think that most people, given their own devices, let's say women specifically, are okay with part of their monogamous relationship with their man being that man touching and viewing other naked women for money? Do you think that's a normal thing to expect of women? I don't think it is.
Actually,
I think that's
yeah.
a very normal thing. I think that's a very normal
Really?
I would say loosely.
I think
normal,
touching.
because
I
there's
think
a lot of
touching
women-
is. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
touching
let's
is a
use,
line.
let's use
But
the
go ahead,
weakest
Josh.
version. Let's just say viewing. Let's just say just viewing for this. For the
Then
sake of this
100%.
conversation.
110%.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
live
There's
viewing. I'm not
levels to
talking
it.
porn. I'm talking strip club. Just to clarify, live viewing.
We all- we all on the same
110%.
page.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
fucking
levels
mind.
to it, bro. Because like sometimes like a nigga could have a problem where you just going to the strip club every other day. That's a different type of situation. But if you go like every now and then, hey babe, I went to the strip club last night. Yo, it was crazy. Oh, for real? Da-da-da. Like a lot of women don't necessarily have an issue with that. Of course, there are some women who do.
I
There
think
are some
most women
people
have
who
an
do.
issue with it, but it's just normal.
I think most
I don't
women
know.
don't, man. I think most women don't.
I have not.
I have met women that had issues with it, so
Yeah.
I'm not saying none, Eddie.
Oh no,
because
okay.
you're right.
I think
I have
more women than
100%
express it have an issue. I think it's so normalized that most women are like, "Fuck it, I can't fight this," whatever kind of thing.
It's hella women that like to go to the strip club though, bro.
Okay, that's
I've been to the
that's
strip club.
fair. That's fair. That's
They
fair.
enjoy going to the strip club with their man. They will buy a dance for their nigga sometimes.
But they also, I
And
feel like a
them.
lot of them types
And
do
them.
threesomes and shit like that.
no.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay.
No.
I'm sorry.
All right. Okay.
Or, and I
No,
think
hey, look.
context.
I can see.
Context also matters too. Like to your point, Josh.
That's crazy
like,
as fuck. She ain't going to
if-
Chippendales if she with me. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm a Jonah Hill. We're not doing that around here. Nope. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
I know.
Oh no,
Eddie
just
Hill
to
over
Josh's
here.
point. I think like context matters too. Like so, for example, like Josh's point, if you have a guy who's like going to the strip club like every weekend or multiple times a week, and then like maybe the couple like they're not having sex or something, it's like okay, maybe that speaks to something deeper, an issue deeper in the relationship. But then if like
yeah.
would most women like let's say like my buddy was getting married, it's like hey, it's a bachelor party, he's bringing us to a strip club. Like I think most women would.
I
be
think that's
probably
fucking
chill.
ridiculous. And I've seen women
Oh, I
complain
think
about
most women
that
would be
being
chill with
super
that.
strange as a norm. Shit's-
Well, I think it's the context. Right?
I've
If
had-
I'm going like
yeah.
alone, it's one thing. If I'm going
I've
with like
had
my
women,
friend has a
yeah.
bachelor party, yeah.
I've had women 100% complain to me about going to a strip club, and I'm not like, especially not at my current age, I'm not like a strip club like frequenter. Like even in like my prime, it was something that like maybe happened like once every like couple months. The vast majority like have not expressed any issue. Like in my
I can believe
entire
that.
history.
I can believe that.
Same.
I think maybe,
Same.
yeah, no, I can believe that. But yeah, I think it goes back to the same thing that I've said about like the porn stuff, where it's like I think stuff is so normalized that it's not even really invited as a potential conversation, because I think that if the idea of a bachelor party where a person who is about to enter into a monogamous relationship codified in law, but they've been practicing monogamy for years prior to that, that the way that they celebrate that is by being sexually gratified by viewing members of the opposite gender to commemorate furthering their monogamous is fucking weird. But I think it's so normal that it's just like, yeah, that's just what guys do. I think that the people that complain about that are few and far between, but entirely justified, is my stance.
May I ask you a quick question?
Okay.
We might have talked about this before, but have you
Yeah.
been to like a real strip club before?
Not
Like
a
I mean,
ton.
like Atlanta. Like
Okay, so the closest thing I've been to is like hired strippers at like a party. That's the
Which is
situations that I've
probably
been in.
more wild depending on how.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
It's definitely
that
as
is-
yeah.
that's
In
And
my
I'm like,
experience, that's been more
different
wild.
vibe.
okay, yeah. So maybe that's where because I've been to a few of those, and it's like she's asshole naked. You know what I mean? Like all the way.
There
dancing
are
around
strip
kinda thing,
clubs.
so-
There are strip clubs where like they can't even take bottoms off. Where you're talking about some whole asshole naked. Like there are strip clubs in Georgia.
sure.
That like where like they can't take bottoms
But
off. You know,
now
like,
now we're arguing at the
Oh, yeah.
spectrum,
Oasis.
right? So
Yeah.
so if we're saying it's okay if these following criteria, that's a different. Now you're talking about sort of like striating it out, and that's a different conversation.
No, but
that's
so,
not the
like, I
conversation
think-
that gets had.
I mean, like again, because you know, fucking strip club veteran here. Like there are
Yeah.
differences in the
You are the
levels of
expert.
behavior that you can engage in at strip clubs, bro. So like, I think that the line of viewership is 100% fine for like monogamous relationships. Like, are you gonna say that like I can't fucking watch like, you know, Eyes Wide Shut or something because like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like
Here's- okay,
viewing
no, let me-
live is the same thing as like porn or like cinema.
Okay,
I feel like
and
it's the same thing.
I've said my takes on porn that I think it's not unreasonable for a person to have an issue with that. But I'll roll back some of the thing because like if you're going to the theater and there's nudity or you're like plays and shit like that and there's like nudity involved in the performance piece or you're watching a film Eyes Wide Shut and there's nudity involved in that, that's fine. And so I think there's circumstances where you could be like, look, we're going to a party, it's at a strip club, there will be naked women around, but my engagement with them is not the direct primary thing that's happening. That's
So-
more like, okay, fine.
So
But
again,
if the
so-
goal is sexual gratification and the primary activity is someone else's nudity
So-
as sex, that's different.
For our
Yeah, you
people,
beating
for our
off in
people
front
that
of
don't
them?
know,
Not
I'm just
beating
saying.
off,
For our
but
people
you're
that don't
getting-
know about,
Come
for our
on,
people
man,
that
we
don't
know
know
what it
about
is.
Atlanta, for our people that don't know about Atlanta, there's a lot of stuff that goes on about like Magic City or whatever and the wings.
Yeah, right.
I don't
Yeah,
think-
look, if you're there
yeah.
for the wings,
I'm not a Magic City wings kind of guy. Blue Flame though, Blue Flame got some of the best wings in the city. Not
Hey.
not just for a strip club neither. Just period.
Period.
Blue Flame got some of the best
Yeah,
wings
yeah.
in there. So
Some
if I
of the
want to
best
go in
food
there
in
and
the city, in the strip
Yeah.
clubs.
yeah. So if I want to go in there and just like have some wings and just be like, oh, you know, I'm not here for sexual gratification. There just happens to be half naked women while I'm like having
order it to
my
go
lunch.
then. Order it to go then, Playboy. Like I don't think you can use these type of excuses if we are saying
No,
that
so-
the sexual gratification element
Okay.
isn't appropriate. You couldn't.
I'm
use that in
not.
any other
No,
situation.
I'm not. I'm just
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just fucking
exactly.
with
So
you
I'm
at
saying,
this
like-
point because I
Yeah.
think that the splitting of hairs between like I feel like it becomes a what's the word I can use without ruffling feathers here.
You can ruffle mine
Say it.
if you don't mind.
It-
Yeah, I
it-
don't mind.
it-
If
it
that's
just-
whose
it just
feathers you're
beca-
talking
it-
about.
It just becomes like some kind of sedity bougie kind of like splitting of hairs kind of bullshit where it's like if it's for the cinema then yeah you can
Oh, no,
do
no,
it, but
that's
it's
fair.
highbrow
If you-
art.
Yeah.
But
Like if you're saying it's like some classist shit, but no. But I feel like I made that distinction that I'm trying specifically to not. I don't know if this is me getting my feathers ruffled. I'm trying specifically to not make it like some classist shit that like if it's white people naked then it's fine. I'm saying if you're at the strip club and you're eating wings and it's a night and like the titties are kind of like just ambiance. Sure, that's closer
I can say,
to
but I can say
acceptable.
that. But my point is that I can say that. And when I brought up the wings kind of situation, what I was trying to get at is that I can say that about any fucking trip to the strip club. Like that. Your point, if that's your line, it's a moot point.
But
like-
hold on, but and I'm not a strip club veteran, so I don't know what the different levels of strip club attendance are. If you're saying that people are going to the strip club and the large majority of them or a great majority of them who are doing bachelor parties are not getting any level of sexual gratification or arousal as part of the experience, then cool, I concede. If
I
that's
wouldn't say
what you're saying.
majority, but it definitely does happen. And
If it ain't
the
majority,
issue-
then
But the issue that I'm taking with like your stance is that like that's an impossible standard to even like terse out, right? Like I can't even like if that's the line that I'm gonna draw, right? What I'm saying is that my partner cannot differentiate between the two. It's a
Mac,
pointless
I think I
it's a
cut you
pointless
before.
boundary.
yeah, okay.
I find because again, I think we're kind of touching on the idea that there's like when we're talking about like boundaries or criteria, we're talking about like a big spectrum that most people will find certain things reasonable, others not so. Just because this is one I hear a lot in like manosphere spaces, or to your point, necessarily because you hold this, but just to get your thoughts. One of the things I often hear from a lot of these like manosphere guys is they won't even be comfortable with let's say my girlfriend says, "Hey, I'm meeting up with my friend at the bar down the street just to grab a drink and catch up." There are a lot of like, manosphere dudes who would not be okay with that, because in their view, it's like, well, you're going to a place with another woman where I'm not with you, so there is the chance that men might come up and try to flirt with you.
Oh
Yeah,
shit!
so
Okay, that's even more extreme. So
That's-
she's going to
'cause
meet
that's one that I've
another
heard.
woman for drinks.
Yeah, just like, hey, I'm meeting with my friend just to catch up. We'll have some cocktails.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's
Yeah.
it's hard because because like my first, like for me, I would consider that a bit too much. Like that seems a bit kind of going
That's
back to the whole
Way beyond. That's controlling as hell. I think.
Well, that's the thing, because like then we're touching back on the thing of like my first instinct when I hear that would be that guy seems insecure to me. But then you guys, a couple of you guys kind of highlighted that sometimes I think we do throw that out a little bit too often
I think so.
to justify certain things where it's
'Cause
like,
I don't think that's the issue. I think insecure is fine. I think the controlling is the issue.
well, but the controlling usually, is it not usually sprout from the
Well, I think
insecurity?
it's like, yes, like controlling almost always sprouts from insecurity, but insecurity doesn't always sprout into controlling. So that's, you cut it at the branch,
That's a
not the
good
root.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Ooh, actually, I kind of wanted to take it back to the Keke Palmer thing real quick.
let's go.
Because one of the because like a big part of the conversation that I don't think we touched on yet is if it was like the reverse.
That's exactly what I was thinking about the whole time I was having the
And-
conversation, is if it was the reverse.
Yeah,
The reverses happen. So I want
And
to
it's
point that out too.
inappropriate.
The reverses
Check this out.
happen. The man got the backlash, and I still think it was stupid for the man to get the backlash. Chance the Rapper is the
I was
example
thinking
that
the
people.
same thing.
Done the chat, bend your back and wind your hip for that. Give me that one time, yeah, give me that, girl, give me. Hey, girl, you look.
Chance was
I'll say this
bugging.
real quick. Yo,
But-
hey, that was Carnival too. So there's also whatever. But let me just get this.
Exactly.
Let
He
me
shouldn't
get
have
this
been
shit
there.
out. Let me get this
Sorry,
shit out,
Josh.
bro. Just let me get this shit out.
Go.
Oh, I was actually talking to a girl, and we hashed this shit out. In terms of like how she felt about it and how I felt about it, and just to get her perspective on it. Like the main thing across the board, he shouldn't have done that shit publicly. Like that could have been a text message. All the shit could have been avoided.
yes.
That was her main thing. Like in this whole thing, I was like, oh, cool, I get that. But what about the situation of how she was grinding up on Usher? And she was like, I mean, shit, it's Usher. What the fuck? I mean, it's Usher.
seen so many people say that.
Exactly. It's like, but meaning like if a girl or possibly your girl had the opportunity, she might be grinding up on Usher too. But then I was like, okay, well check this out though. Say for instance, if it was the other way around, and if it was me at a show, and then she was like, okay, well, who's your celebrity crush? I wish I would have fucking said Meg Thee Stallion. I wish I would have had Meg Thee Stallion in my head. Like if Meg Thee Stallion would have gave me a show, throwing that ass back, talking that shit, singing happy birthday, all that shit. Goddamn. How would you feel? She was like, yeah, nah, I'm gonna have a problem with that.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna be just. She said, "I'll give you." Like I
Exactly.
would be looking with my head over my shoulder like the Ike Turner picture.
There definitely is a double standard. I think when it comes to men
Alvin's
sort of
face is
setting
hilarious.
I think it's a different standard too, because even before we get into like the typical double standard of it, I think it's also like Keke Palmer is a celebrity, right? You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
it's a different layer even on top of like the usual
That's
layer,
true.
right? So it's different because like, oh, my girl's bad and Usher pulls her up on stage. Okay, like, got it. Keke Palmer is a actual celebrity with actual access to actual like men of that like
That makes
status,
it
right?
worse. Now
That's
that
what I'm
you
saying.
say
That's
it,
what I'm
yeah.
so I do so
Yeah.
before we address the double standard of it, I do want to point out that it may not even like this is a whole different level of double standard. Because
But
he's
also-
a regular motherfucker.
Right.
And she's a celebrity.
And people want to roast him and be like, oh, well, see, that's why you don't date bum ass. It's like, yo, wait a second, hold on. If you're in a relationship and you're with a civilian and you're a superstar, you have to now deal with civilian insecurity, civilian concerns. That's okay. And vice versa. Joe Goldberg's ass, or what's old boy's actual name? Penn Badgley did exactly that for the U series. He's dating a civilian. They had conversations about their relationships. He said, we got to roll back these dick and ass scenes. Like, that's you have to deal with that. You can't just be like, oh, well, I'm the big baller, so you just got to deal with whatever the fuck I'm doing. You know?
I'm sorry.
Definitely.
Yeah. But if they not together,
Oh, then none of this.
There's
is
no
relevant. This is all
conversation.
hypothetical.
Matters.
Yeah, this is all
you know
hypothetical.
what I mean? But
Yeah.
but man, the other things like Usher,
This is all us talking about the people's replies to this shit. If they're
Right,
not
right,
together,
right.
you don't need to have shit
Yeah,
to
like,
say
this
about
ain't
her
no
fucking.
Oh
If
my
she
God.
sucked Usher's dick on stage, that's not your business,
right?
bro.
Was he
All
even-
of us at the
was
same
her-
time just were like, yeah. Like, you know.
Was her? I guess I can get consensus. Like us putting aside the Usher thing, if we're just talking about what he was upset at, which was her dress. Did you guys consider her? Because I saw pictures of the dress. It didn't seem that.
Well, it's definitely risque. I mean, she has the right to do that, but it's definitely it's at the top level of risque for a dress, I would say.
I wouldn't have
Before it
felt
becomes
like
level.
I felt like it was like
I wouldn't
Not
have cared
top.
about
Yeah, it could get more. You're right, but I would say
And
it's
maybe
it's,
that's-
it's, it's in the upper half. It's in the upper half. It's
It's
not
in the
yeah.
upper half. It's in the upper half. I will go on record and say like I wouldn't care if my girl wore it. If my girl
Yeah,
wore
but,
it,
yeah,
I
fair
feel
enough,
the
yeah.
same.
I
And I
mean,
think
yeah,
that's up
we
to
all-
everybody's. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is a
seems to
risque
me
dress.
And again, maybe like to your point, maybe it's kind of going back to like the whole strip club example. Maybe it's just that things have gotten like in terms of like what is considered like appropriate risque dress has gotten so like how long ago was like showing your ankles as a woman considered like whoa,
Right.
like that's
as
like,
Eddie
yeah.
likes to point out, wearing pants. You know, like these modern women are wearing these fucking.
I'm just
pants,
saying,
you know?
man.
Like, it's just a problem.
Separate legs is crazy.
showing off too much, man. You know.
What? Kneecaps covered, jean
going
material on both legs,
Pockets.
What do you need
Well,
pants
fuck.
for? You running to another nigga? Why? What?
Are
the
you
fuck
are you
need legs
hiding a
free for?
38? You hiding a
Yeah.
38 in them pockets?
The girl's showing the outline of her calves to some other man. I don't know what that's about. What's going on here? You know.
but I mean, the whole booty was out. If
But that's
if,
fine.
say, for
Though.
instance,
But yeah.
yeah, cool. But just realistically speaking, if it was me, I'd be like, oh goddamn, girl, that fat ass is out, out there for everybody to see. But one thing about like once you find somebody you can work with, and like people in real life are actually very sane, very reasonable people. A woman will say, hey, if something I'm wearing might make you feel uncomfortable, you have every right to address that with me, but you cannot control what I wear and what I do with my body at the end of the day. We can have a conversation, and then I
Yeah.
can understand where you're coming from. Then, okay, cool, I can do a little something different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you
But-
can't forbid me. You can give
Exactly.
feedback. Yeah.
Exactly. You can get like, hey, okay, and if we can come, if it's a understandable, an understanding, like we can reach a common ground, like this makes sense on both sides. Okay, I can acquiesce here, but shit, women be wearing some shit right now. I'm talking about. And I don't mean it necessarily in a bad way.
Hey.
So
It's some
just certain
clothing.
things you got to hold, man. Like I mean,
some clothing.
like
You seen that-
she coming home to you, she ain't giving nobody else energy. Hey.
You seen that new
So
dress
what's-
style where they just print a whole naked body on the front of the dress, and that's the dress?
As you should. Nah, get up. Fuck that shit. I can't celebrate.
Go ahead and make love.
I ain't even new, man. I ain't even
Sounds
new. You like
weird.
That's like last 5 years new. Like that's
last
still
5
like
years is
people.
new.
Yeah, because I would say it's the next iteration from like the Aztec print and like the body conscious and like the summer dresses. Like it's the most
Fair
enough. Oh, I
recent
see what you mean.
like
Fair
invention
enough. Fair
of
enough. Yeah.
simulating nudity.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I actually they look kind of cool. They make you look like an anime.
Oh, they're
character.
amazing.
Yeah,
they're
kinda
amazing.
cool actually.
God, I'm just gonna get my girl.
Crazy.
one
They
for her
just
birthday.
print nipples onto the shirt. It almost seems like it should be corny because it seems like a T-shirt with a tuxedo on it, but it looks good the way they've done it.
Wow, they got like the Batman nipple.
Exactly.
Yeah, they do.
It literally has
going-
Batman nipples, ass crack, like a little pussy shadow. Like yeah,
That's
So the
kind of
thing,
hot.
the thing.
it's hot. It's very hot.
Agreed.
To go back to the double standard thing, I know we were talking about men and women. Was something that kind of always interested me though. For a lot of the guys who, so for example, if we take the Jonah Hill situation, it's like, hey, I don't want you posting bikini selfies on Instagram. Like, okay, like depending on the person, they might be okay with that, they might not. But for a lot of guys who wouldn't be okay with that, I wonder would those how receptive would those guys be to if their girl said, hey, I don't want you posting any shirtless gym selfies. Like if you just got
Right.
off the gym, you're doing like the double bicep and you're showing off your abs. If she said,
I think it would be appropriate though. if they did ask that.
Well, if it's the
But they
same way
wouldn't be
around,
receptive.
right?
But
Yeah,
they
I
wouldn't be
agree.
receptive
But I
like
think
that.
that pointing out a double standard isn't an argument by itself. And I
Yes.
think
Fair.
we sometimes do
Fair.
that. Like, just because two people are wrong doesn't mean that the whole wrong thinking is correct.
Yeah, you
I
can
will
point out
say-
some hypocrisy on a certain person's part, but it's not like, it
That
doesn't
doesn't
just
legitimize.
disqualify the argument. Yes.
Exactly, yeah.
I will say from my perspective, I have celebrity crushes. Like if I'm in a relationship and I post my celebrity crushes and like fucking Shannon Thornton comes up there and she's willing to hug me, I'm gonna get a fucking hug and I'm gonna take a picture about it. I don't care if
And
I'm fucking
I don't-
married.
Cheesing like a motherfucker. Just as happy as
Exactly,
I
just
think
like
that-
just like happy as shit. Like Shannon, like
we ain't never seen this much Alvin T before.
Cash Doll come out.
I
I'm a
didn't know
different
his
motherfucker.
cheeks got that high.
Fucking Shannon Thornton, Cash Doll, Taylor Rooks, they come out there.
Cash dog?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah, I
shit,
think-
his voice got silky there for
She
a
definitely
second.
number two. She definitely number two.
Dog.
Yeah, baby.
Cash Doll is definitely number
You
two.
see his
Shannon
out with the
Thornton
light
definitely
skin
number one.
squint.
Oh,
Cash dog,
shit.
First of all, nigga, I'm just drunk.
He started.
I'm just drunk. First of all,
Don't blame it on the
That's what
alcohol.
right.
that's what that is.
Right.
I'm through a whole bottle. I'm through a whole bottle of fucking Four Roses here.
Right.
But yeah, but like, I don't think that what she did from a celebrity interaction, with Usher, even though it's kind of weird to even frame it that way because she is a celebrity herself. But
Yeah.
let's say like a civilian is interacting, my civilian girl is interacting with Usher as a celebrity. I don't think that's weird because I
No,
would
but
be
you
very
have
similarly
different
yoked
standards.
If
Like, if I'm at a Georgia Smith show and Georgia Smith pulls me up on stage to do anything that involves touching, serenading, or dancing with me, I agree with you, Alvin, but I'm going home
take it.
single. I'll
You're not
take
going
it, but I
home
know
single.
it's destroying
You're
my
not going-
relationship.
you're not going home single,
No.
you're not going home.
No, I'm
single.
not.
You're
I'm-
gonna
I'm
fuck up
exa-
your own relationship. That's what you're
Okay,
gonna
okay.
do.
You're not
Break
even.
up with her.
You're not even going home that mad. Y'all probably gonna have a good conversation in the fucking car. Y'all are gonna fucking like laugh about it and be like, "Oh my god, you got to fucking get serenaded."
I
by
don't
Georgia
think.
Smith.
I think that you're exaggerating how much like people are tolerant of that kind of shit. I think
we're both exaggerating. I think it's probably
let me
somewhere
go
in the middle.
let me go
of
back
both
and,
of
and
us.
be more clear in my point because I was speaking flamboyantly. I wouldn't do that, truthfully. If I'm in a relationship with somebody and a very hot celebrity invites me to any form of theaterized version of like flirtation, I'm going to refuse it if I respect my relationship. I'm going to say no. It's not worth the experience.
Yeah.
Georgia Smith ain't trying to fuck me anyway. She's not like, there's no reason for me to display how much I desire another woman if I'm in a monogamous relationship.
I don't want to derail your point too much, but you really don't
Yeah.
believe that. You really believe that you probably got a 75% chance with her if you see her. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but she probably,
Oh, yeah,
but
big
for her
fan.
brand, she probably wouldn't.
Big
Like,
fan.
she secretly wants to, but she wouldn't for her brand because it would fuck her brand up
Of
to date a
course.
podcaster. But she wants, she wants
Be
to.
a
Don't
Kevin
get me wrong.
Federline.
Yeah,
Pop it.
exactly. Yeah,
Well,
I could do it.
That goes back to the
not
question
publicly.
of like, I think you put it well, Eddie, because you mentioned you use the term like theatrical. So
Hmm.
at what point it's like, again, if I'm like, if I did that with like a girl at like the bar and my girlfriend walked in and saw that, she'd be like, what the fuck? But if I
Exactly.
like did that at a concert where that's like kind of going back to the Usher example where it's like a thing that
Yes.
happens where he serenades, where does that cross the line into like sort of like a theatrical piece or sort of like theater or a performance? Because again,
Yeah,
I don't
the
think
theater of it, leave it be.
I think
maybe.
it's
Or
all
even-
theater. I think it's
Yeah.
all theater though. I think if I'm at a meet and greet and I see fucking Taylor Rooks because I like sports and she's a sports commentator and I want to get a photo, like I feel like that's all her being a good showman. You know what I mean? I think Usher was being a showman.
No,
I think
Usher is fine. Usher's doing what Usher does.
Yeah.
Usher's doing what Usher does. He's not doing anything wrong. He's doing his show. He's pulling people up on stage who want to participate in that. But we cannot act like sexual theater isn't sexual. Because if someone were uncomfortable, for instance, we would immediately understand that it's sexual. It's not just theater. It's sex theater. If he pulled somebody up on stage and they said, actually, this feels a little bit like much for me, we wouldn't be like, oh, you're not being a good sport. You're not doing the hypnosis. It's like, no, this is a sex dance that you're doing with this person. We get it. We understand you have the right to be uncomfortable. And we also understand that people who are saying yes, 9 times out of 10, they're interested
I'm just saying.
romantically.
I'm just saying it's also like in that situation that you say, like Usher also like understands the boundaries of the person that he's done. For example, like it's very clear from like how he responded to Keke Palmer that him and Keke Palmer know each other, because there have been subsequent like situations in that where like if they didn't play into it, he was much less like hands off. Like I'm thinking the situation with like Budden's girl, for example.
Exactly.
Versus versus like Sweetie versus like Taraji. Like it's different.
That's my point.
But my point is that all of those things still happened, and like, you know.
No, I don't know.
No, what I'm saying is that it's all still the theater of sex. Your point about like there being a line with the theater of sex is valid and understood. I think that performers understand the theater of sex and they know the lines, and I'm still going to participate in the theater of sex, knowing that we all still have lines, and that I'm still going to go home happy with my girl after participating in the theater of sex while still exercising the lines. I think that's very
those
valid
two things don't have much to do with one another. Like
they do.
Usher knows that he has a different level of.
You literally make
Usher,
make them the same thing.
No, because Usher. Oh, well, let me try and explain why I think they're not exactly related in the way that you're implying. Like Usher understands that different participants are going to have different levels of willingness to participate in this theater with him. It is up to that individual to manage their comfort level and communicate that, as well as their own personal relationships. So there are going to be women who, and as you made the examples, who go, I'm not doing this level of performance with you because of whatever reasons I have. So it's not about Usher. It's about what level of participation is.
It was still, but my point is,
and I'm saying, but the whole point is that it doesn't matter that it's a performance. Like,
and my point is that you literally made it about a performance. You literally brought up.
No, I made it about the sex. I said it is the theater of sex.
The theater of sex,
point
which
is the
performance.
Sex. No, because we know
performance
it's performance.
Of sex.
We know it's performance. I'm saying the sex part is what makes this a conversation. Going to the movies is not cheating. That's irrelevant. I'm saying the sex part is the part that we're leaving out, and I'm making a point about the sex part of sexual performance.
The theater of sex, which is a performance which performers know how to make like work in this context of that. And
what does work have to do with anything?
No, it's because the fact that it is a performance, right? That people of profession and consent know how to make work in the context of that scene. That means that it can work within the context of people's normal, regular, everyday lives. That's what it means to have a performance.
What are we saying when we say work?
Be successful. It can.
And
it
what
can
do we
happen,
mean by be successful?
I'll explain. It can happen, be conducted. People can enjoy themselves and then go about their regular, everyday lives like they would after any other performance.
But they don't, which is why we're having this conversation.
They do.
No, but that's why we're having this conversation.
They do all the time.
But they do all the time sometimes.
They do,
which is why
all
we're having
the time.
this conversation. The fact that sometimes it's not an issue doesn't make it not an issue when it is an issue.
So
what are you talking about?
The fact that something happens 1% of the time, because you have no numbers to back this up.
Okay.
If it happens 99% of the
1%?
time, I would venture to say that it's probably less than 1%. So like,
I would give him.
So
more credit
look,
than that,
I don't. Sorry, say again.
I was just saying I would give you more like I would say I guess more than 1%, but ultimately like it's something like it happens all the time in that line of work and in that performance.
So we're saying we think that for the most part, most people, when a performer that their partner is attracted to pulls them up on stage and does some form of sensual, flirtatious performance with their partner, most people have close to no issue with this at all, like the overwhelming majority of the time.
I would say yes.
Okay.
I think
especially given the fact that they can draw the lines.
I think another facet of it, which kind of maybe like dulls the blow or makes a different thing, is the fact that we're talking about like a civilian and a celebrity. So for like, I imagine like if I'm like on my I'm on my Twitter or something, and I retweet a photo of like, hey, Zendaya in her new movie, and she's looking really good, and I post something like you know, like a GIF of like, oh, so sexy. I feel like if my girlfriend saw that, she wouldn't care. She'd probably be like, oh, yeah, it's Zendaya, whatever. But if it was some, like, random chick's Twitter, like just some random chick, then I posted that, and she'd be like, who the fuck is this girl?
Exactly.
I don't know.
Because you have a chance.
That's a total difference.
I think that's kind of where when we're talking about celebrities, it almost like disqualifies. Where if I went up on stage with like Taylor Swift or something, and she did like a serenade or something, I think my girlfriend would be like, I don't know who. Like, come on, it's like Taylor Swift. Like,
she ain't got no rhythm. Taylor Swift ain't got no sex appeal. Like, I mean, what the fuck?
just
That bitch
thinking
give
of
you the stiffest lap dance ever.
I don't know, man. She's kind of cute though. She's kind of cute.
I mean,
but she
and
really
like,
is a terrible dancer.
She is a terrible dancer. She is a terrible dancer.
just be doing this shit, giving you all the back in the world.
Oh man, I saw her dancing on a tweet. Oh man, they said she danced like a fucking Vice City stripper.
Just like the three moves, their programs. Or it's similar to like when people talk about, you guys know when talk about like, celebrity hall passes or something. Yeah. If I was like if my girlfriend asked me like, who's your celebrity hall pass?
It's weird.
That's weird.
It's fucking weird, man. The fact that somebody's a celebrity doesn't just erase the... No, my fault. Sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I think we can all agree that if like my girlfriend was like, hey, so who would like be your celebrity hall pass? I would say like Haley Steinfeld or something. And it's like, okay. Or like, who's your hall pass? It's like, this celebrity.
A man of culture.
But, but then if I said some shit like, who's your hall pass? And I'm like, oh, like your friend Erica.
Yeah,
like,
your sister.
Or something. That would be a completely different ballgame.
Yeah, she's a celebrity to me. I don't know.
There is something to be said about like... It's like, and to your point, I think that there is like, literally, it's like, it's still infidelity. It shouldn't matter. But there is something to be said about there's the likelihood of that occurring.
Yeah.
I think does play a role into it, or something occurring that goes beyond just the theater, if you will.
Which I think makes it, if it's two celebrities, it makes it worse. But at the same time, I think it also, like, it almost evens out, because I feel as a celebrity, it makes it worse because KEKE could totally fuck Usher. Like, she has that access. But two, I think also when you're a celebrity and you're an actor, just being in that world, the rules are a little bit different. Like sex scenes and kissing people and doing performance on stage is kind of part of your work. So that's usually a conversation that I think comes up as part of the process. Like, hey, by the way, my work, my trajectory in life, and my upcoming career is going to involve lots of pseudo-sexual behavior with other people. You need to know that before you enter into a relationship with me. But it don't. So, you would have to assume that conversation has been had. So.
Yeah. Or it's like a given the profession where you know that like, hey, if you sign up for a movie and there's a sex scene in it, it's like, that's
you're gonna say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The celebrity hall pass thing is
that's wild to me.
It's very silly to me. It's very wild to me. I'm surprised that you say that, Alvin, because I'm like,
so the reason why I think it's wild is because like, and I've talked about this on the podcast before. It's like, I have like female friends who like celebrities like regularly like jump in their DMs.
It's definitely different. It's different if you're a woman.
Celebrity
hall pass is different as a woman.
Yeah, a celebrity is not like I've talked about my celebrity crushes or whatever. Like none of those people would like approach me with like a 10-foot pole. Like,
they might, but I see what you mean.
Like the girls that I know, the women that I know, like are consistently like
possible
approached by like
it's
celebrities.
Possible.
You know what I mean?
100%. Usher will.
It's
100%
like people will like they'll post something on Instagram and like
Usher,
a fucking NBA player will like 100% like dive in their DMs. Like it's not the same.
I think that's an appropriate double standard.
I think that's wild. But again, like I said, I feel like my girl can get a picture with Usher. She can get serenaded by Usher on his arm all she wants. I'm getting my pic with Shannon Thornton. Just saying.
Okay. Y'all be safe.
I mean, because my thing with that is like, okay, especially with the conversation I had with this person was like, we kind of felt the same way about it. It's like, you're going to catch these jokes. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to make it a little difficult for you for a couple of days. So this is going to be like a running joke. But that's kind of like a L that we can hold and still like move on from it in a sense. Because, if you can do that with Usher and shit, or I said Zazie Beetz, like if Zazie Beetz was okay, like if Zazie Beetz was like wearing some Keke Palmer type shit and she was singing me happy birthday, Mr. President, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how would you feel?
I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Not comfortable with that example.
Don't do it. 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 Don't do it.
I need a minute, man.
Oh no.
Fucking Zazie Beetz. Why you at this?
Why did you pick that, bro? Why would you? You had all that time to think of different examples.
No, that was actually my real life example. That was my real.
I believe you should have lied.
For the love of God, just say Rihanna. For the love of God, just say Rihanna.
Right.
Look.
Come on, man. What we doing?
Nigga, don't
This is
start
publicly
blushing,
released.
nigga. Don't start blushing. I don't give a fuck, nigga. That was. I ain't got no sexual attraction to you, my nigga. I did not see you in see Zazie Beetz. Okay, watch the fuck out. Okay. You ain't got that long, gorgeous hair no more, nigga.
That makes it way worse somehow. Like proclaiming it that specifically makes it way worse.
I know.
I have no sexual attraction to you whatsoever, good sir.
Because you used to look like Zazie Beetz does not mean that you currently look like Zazie Beetz. Like, it's hilarious.
Man, let me have.
I only jerk off to the old Instagram photos.
Let me have my crush, man. I've been crushing on Zazie Beetz for a long ass time, bro. Before this whole. Whatever,
Before you knew me?
Nigga, I never thought. There was never a time when I saw Zazie Beetz and thought, oh, this shit. Eddie look exactly like this bitch. Shit, I might be gay. Like, what the fuck? No. That was never a point in time.
Well, look, I think we should probably close the podcast off here.
On that note,
On that note.
So I
It's a
came on to
close-knit
talk
family
about-
here at the Waving the Red Flag podcast.
So I came on to talk about Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah, we didn't talk about nothing about
we didn't get there.
Yeah, we didn't quite get there.
should-
The Keke Palmer
we
thing
should-
had too much meat on it.
You should
say
still
this is
call
gonna
the
happen
episode discussion on Into the Spider-Verse, and then people will click on it and be like, what the
Oh,
And
yeah.
then it's just no Keke. It's just all Keke.
Pissed.
Okay, well, look, everybody. This has been the Waving the Red Flag podcast. It's been Eddie, Alvin, Josh, joined by Mac. You know, look, if you're like in Instagram or whatever, trying to shame your girl for posting, dresses or surfing photos or whatever the fuck, it's certainly you that's waving the red flag. But at the same time, if your girl has a goddamn celebrity hall pass that's like somebody who's currently in her DMs, you might be seeing a red flag. It's been Waving the Red Flag podcast. Mac, do you have any stuff that you want the people to, see, check out? You know what I'm saying? Where should they see you?
Oh, yeah, of course. Macabre Storytelling on YouTube. Macabre Storytelling, Macabre, one of those pronunciations.
Link in the
Why don't you
bio.
spell it for him?
I was about to ask
that.
if you were going to change it officially to Macabre. Like, I didn't know if that was like the...
There was a part of me that was thinking of just switching my channel name to Mac.
It's a good name. It's a good name. I like it. Yeah. Well,
And
look,
I think Mac might be too vague. It might cross over
What is
into
this
something
about?
weird.
Is
That's what I'm worried about.
McDonald's? Is he a pimp? What is this? I don't know what.
Hey, whatever gets the views, man. Whatever.
Turn up the Mac. I don't know.
You lied to me. That's what they're gonna think every time they're watching a new video. Join the Patreon if you want the full podcast experience, if you want the bonus episodes, if you want to join us on the live stream, if you want access to the Discord. Like, subscribe, comment, and we will see y'all next week. Let us know what you think. That's it. Guten Tag.
Lederhosen.
Hinger dinger.